We are Group Fantastica, and I'm Anu, the team leader, and here are my four colleagues, Liz, Shashank, Kavya, and Blessing. And today we are gonna critically analyze the leadership styles of Sir Richard Branson and Sundar Pichai. And today's our agenda is defining leadership and management, international leadership as a concept, biographies of both the leaders, business models of Alphabet and Google, and Virgin Group Limited. Apart from it, we will apply the approaches on the both of the leaders, and in the end we will come to the conclusion. Now Shashank will explain his part and define the leadership and management.
So, the first and the foremost, what is leadership? Everyone has different perspective in the view of leadership. Some people think leadership is all about the art of motivating a group of people to act towards achieving a common goal. Some people may say leadership is about developing people and helping others to reach their full potential. As per Maybury, leadership entails the development of others, assisting them in reaching their full potential. It's about the arming with the right tools, with the right strategies to improve not only the organization's success, but as well as the people lives as well. So the next big question is what leadership means to you. In our definition, a leader is someone who you can look upon and to be proud to follow him, whose accomplishments are inspiring and of interest of the group as asked to follow them. So there are two types of leadership, traditional leadership and the international leadership. In the traditional leadership, it is described as a form of leadership in which leader is granted power based on the historical traditions, like kings, dictators, and many of the today's corporate executives are current examples. Almost all the leaders in the past were considered traditional as their influence was linked to the previous leaders. But in the international leadership, the approach is about the freedom of the thoughts, room for creativity, and their influence to welcome the new ideas. In the traditional leaders, they were things the power of their belongings underpinned by the hierarchy, and this is power on their longevity. But in the international leadership, it is all about the open-minded values, unique insights, and that diverse perspective that can bring positivity. After that, becomes to management versus leadership. Management consists of controlling a group of entities to accomplish a goal, but a leadership is individual ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards the organization's success.
Sundar Pichai biography. Sundar Pichai was born in Chennai, in India on 1972. He got a degree from Stanford University. Pichai joined in Google in 2004. There he worked with Google software and products. Initially, he worked on Google search toolbar as a part of small team. Next slide, please. Pichai launched the Google Chrome that gave great success to him. After launching Google Chrome, he was promoted as a vice president of product development. Later, Pichai was appointed as a CEO of Google in 2015. After he launched the Alphabet, he was appointed as the Alphabet company too, whose net income amounted to 40.27 billion US dollars in 2020. Next slide, please. His technical and visionary skills proved to the career for him to ultimately attain the position of CEO of Alphabet in 2019. As of January 2021, Google market share was almost 88%. Next slide, please. Alphabet company. This is the Alphabet company's structure. Under this Alphabet company, there are so many companies out there, including Google. Next slide. There is graphical representation of Google annual revenue. In the 2020, there is a annual revenue of 180.69 US dollars. Next slide. The annual revenue of Alphabet from 2011 to 2020 was in 2020 there is an annual revenue of 182.527 US billion dollars. Next, we'll continue, Liz.
Thank you. So Richard Branson was born in 1950 in South London, England. He was actually different to Sundar, as he had poor academic records, but he was especially good at sports. His career actually began at the early age of 15 when he published a magazine called Student. He also then went on to set up a mail order business in 1970, which then became Virgin Records. Virgin Megastores, as it's now called, is worth 5.13 billion British pounds in 2020. Next slide, please. In 1984, Richard Branson expanded. He then brought in Virgin Atlantic. He has, however, faced liquidity problems in 2020, where Virgin Atlantic could easily have gone into liquidation if creditors didn't approve a 1.2 billion rescue deal. He also started Virgin Health Bank, and the Virgin Group itself stands for value for money, quality, innovation, fun, and a sense of competitive challenge. Branson himself lives on a luxury island, which he bought in 1978, and he is actually worth $4.3 billion in 2021. The Virgin Group structure is very varied. As you can see, there are lots of different companies ranging from real estate to gyms to Virgin Galactica, which is spaceships and records, and Virgin Coke. And there are 40 different companies ultimately under the Virgin Group brand. Next slide, please. Richard Branson is a charismatic leader. The definition of a charismatic leader is somebody that appeals to followers' values, communicates in symbolic ways that are clear and vivid, and displays emotional conviction and is very passionate. It is also described as somebody that acts in unique ways that have been specifically charismatic effects on their followers. Next slide, please. Behaviour of charismatic leadership can be defined by Yuckel et al. And Sir Richard Branson definitely demonstrates these criteria, such as a novel and appealing vision. Virgin's vision is screw it, let's do it, which is very non-traditional. Also, Richard Branson demonstrates unconventional behaviour and methods. For instance, Virgin does not have formal board meetings nor committees. Next slide, please. Emotional appeals to values is a definition of charismatic leadership in terms of here, the Virgin family values. As you can see, we have insatiable curiosity, red hot relevance, delightfully surprising. These really appeal to people's emotions. They're very new, they're very fresh, and they are really looked upon highly by the Virgin family. Next slide, please. Yuckel et al. Also said that part of being a charismatic leader is emotional contagion and impressive management. If we look at the photographs here, we see that Richard Branson is a walking, talking logo for the Virgin Group. Not only did he dress up as an air hostess for the launch of Virgin Airlines, he dressed up as a Coke can for Virgin Coke, and we can see there on a picture at a Virgin event he's been held up and carried by some of his colleagues. He couldn't be more enthusiastic, more positive, and he uses the symbols, flags and logos of Virgin to the utmost ability. Next slide, please. We have a critique of charismatic leadership, though, and that is that charismatic leaders tend to make more risky decisions. In the case of Richard Branson, we can see this with Virgin Coca-Cola. 25 years ago, he decided to take on Coca-Cola, which had massive market share. However, for Virgin Coke, their market share peaked at 0.5, and in 2012, the UK producer went bust. Next slide, please. Critique of charismatic leadership also looks at reduces good suggestions and inhibits criticism by followers. And it's also been found in research studies that charisma is not actually an essential attribute for success. It's also been found that adoration can create a delusion of infallibility. However, next slide, please. Richard Branson is very good at offsetting this. He does this through his own personal blog and talks about his failures very often. Here we can see he's talking about lessons from his toughest days, and he likes to shine a light on how embracing failure is crucial for driving a business forward. And again, he uses the Coca-Cola example in this quote where it says it was absolute madness to take on Coca-Cola and he didn't think it through. Next slide, please. Transactional leadership is about training, performance management, processes and control. In practice, this looks like reward and punishment. It's very reactive and it's about goal setting. The disadvantage of this leadership method is that it discourages creativity and has no long-term vision. And ultimately, it could lead to exploitation. For example, an extreme form of this type of leadership is the autocratic leadership, which can be achieved in a high level of power and result in exploitation. Next slide, please. Contrasting this, we have the transformational leadership shown by Richard Branson. This is about vision, commitment, empowerment, and inclusivity. And differently to transactional leadership, it actually results in exploration and not exploitation. Next slide, please. Transformational leadership is all about stirring, motivating, inspiring employees, which Richard Branson is fantastic at. He's also a rule breaker, and as he says himself, it's because he never learnt the rules in the first place. A charismatic leader and a transformational leader is a definition agent of change. And Richard Branson has said himself, to change the game's at the heart of what Virgin stands for. So the company culture has always been, do not sweat it, rules were meant to be broken. Next slide, please.
To support the transformational leadership style that Richard Branson handles, we have the 4 I's that was purported by Bass. Idealized influence. Here, Sir Branson is quite gifted as a global leader with his charismatism and behaves as a role model. We also see that inspirational motivation. Sir Richard, he doesn't struggle to motivate people to join in his efforts, in his ideas, because he will just inspire them and they will do what he's doing because of his adventurous attitude and his confidence. Also, we see in the 4 I's, intellectual stimulation. His strong traits, it supports followers to have ideas, to be stimulated, to have innovations, to be competent in themselves. Finally, we'll see the last I as individualized consideration. Branson listens. He listens to followers carefully, and this is one of the good perspectives that he has in that. Next slide, please. This is one of the examples of the 4 I's where we have a collaboration that was quite successful with the innovation of one of his staff members. Next slide, please. Another example is where we see him having an open letter where it's that each and every one of his staff members have the opportunity of meeting him in person. Next slide, please. Another example is his transformational reputation branding. Here, we see that he focuses less on service branding, but on reputation. And then since he has all these escapades, you see that he motivates his staff to have innovative ideas in this light. Next slide, please. Finally, we have the transformational leadership in a global context. This has to do with the new economy, international marketing, global supply chains, and the ever-changing workforce. All these poses as challenges. And here we see that Sir Richard Branson is also a co-founder of B-Team, where we see the net zero economy by 2050. The question our group has is, was Richard Branson too late to sustainability? We see that Virgin Airlines is in a 1.2 billion rescue deal due to the pandemic. Thank you. Next slide.
Richard Branson also demonstrates the trait approach, which is from an earlier leadership model. You can see here that Richard Branson is actually dyslexic, which means he was born with this trait. This shows that he can have difficulty reading and writing, but also shows he has a really strong imagination, can see the big picture, and is highly creative. We see from the quote here that he's actually said that his dyslexia has helped Virgin carve great communication styles, and if he cannot put it on the back of an envelope, it's rubbish. Next slide, please. The strengths of the trait theory are that it's been going around for a long time. It's one of the oldest theories, and it supports the general notion that leaders are special and gifted, and it does provide a benchmark for what to look at in terms of, are leaders born or are they made? Next slide, please. However, a critique is that there cannot be a definitive list of traits that are deemed from the trait approach. This poses the question, does this theory imply that the next CEO of Virgin Group has to be a born leader? The answer is no. Virgin say there is no set trait for anyone to become an employee at Virgin due to their diverse approach. Next slide, please.
Now I'll take over the Sundar Pichai and I'll explain the different traits I have applied on him. So as it is evidence from the graph here that he is born in 1972, and when he just joined the IIT Kharagpur, where he just become a good engineer, and then just from nothing to everything, he achieved everything in his life as appointed as one of the biggest firm in the world. It is called Google. Next slide, please. Now our first trait is First approach is trait approach. Trait approach traits to possessive or cultivative. One seeks to be perceived by other as a leader in trait. There are like 5 major subheadings here. First one is intelligence. In intelligence, it is evident here he has a high level of IQ when he was child, because he was really good at memorizing the number, which shows that he has a great sharp memory power. And apart from him, he has a great responding capabilities and reasoning capabilities, because he know how to use and when to be aware in which situation, so he don't pressurize and take pressure of the situation. So he has a good reasoning capability as well. Apart from it, when it's come to the emotionally intelligent, he knows how to balance between the employees and employer relationship. So he always make a strong bond with his employees. Next slide, please. Determination. He took a lot of initiative, just like in India. He just launched called the Sati for women. So he invested a huge amount of money in India, because to bring them women and bring them front, so that they can give a tough competition to the people in the India, because most of the time it is evident that the male are come forward and they just display themselves most of the time. And when it's come to the persistence, he always had like ability to come forward, and it is evidence how he just moved the Chrome at the different platform from nothing to everything. He just gave a whole new thing to the Google. And drive and supportive, he's always used to be supportive to his employees and his colleagues. Next slide, please. In technical skills, so here is the first approach, which is called technical skill. In skill approach, there are 3 types of skills. First one is technical, another was human, and last one is conceptual. From top management to supervisory, it differs. So when it comes to the Sundar Pichai, he was really good at strong coding and engineering, because he did his very good IIT level of studies in IIT Kharagpur, and he also gave AI solution finder. Apart from, he also added Android to the Google products, which is clearly evident that he was really good at technical skills. So next slide, please. When it comes to the human skill, he has a good knowledge of math, which is evidence like most of the people can't catch up the things so soon faster. So he was the one who was really good at math and science since his childhood. When it comes to the Google as well, he was appointed as a product manager, which shows like he was really good at managing the things. So he managed the things so well. Apart from it, when it comes to the communication skill, it is evidence from most of the interviews how he managed to do and how he handled his colleagues and how he explain everything in clarity and depth. So he's really clear about his vision and mission to explain to his employees. Next slide, please. Transformation leadership. Transformation leaders model a company standard they expect everyone to follow. He clearly communicates their vision, expectation, how this standard is to be carried out throughout the organization. He places high value on corporate vision and high clarity of thoughts, and that's how he made Chrome succeed. Next slide, please. But the thing is that sometimes transformational leadership take you to the another thing as well, which is used to be called criticized. And it is evident from the most of the articles nowadays, he is criticized because of his delayed and contentious decision making, which is going to cause him a lot of trouble in his personnel moves, which is his personnel turnover rate is decreasing day by day because of the internal company disputes are displacing in the public. Nowadays, it is causing a risk aversion and incrementalism. Next slide, please.
Concluding thoughts that our case studies show very different types of leaderships from both of our case studies. But what's important is that being adaptive to an ever-changing global landscape is essential, and so is strong strategic leadership. Next slide, please. Transformational leadership model is our group's recommended leadership model of the future. However, we feel it will need to be adapting to the changing times. Richard Branson and PICHAI are 71 and 49 years of age, respectively. We are now looking towards predecessors. Next slide, please. Artificial intelligence is expected to be able to write a high school essay, drive a truck, and in 45 years, most jobs will be robotic. We need leaders of the future to be innovative, entrepreneurial, adaptive to global change, risk savvy and empathetic. And also they need to be prepared for leadership in an ever evolving world. Thank you for listening.